So I think, part of the problem with what you're expressing a worry about these people, the technology enables them to communicate about their own issues and their, predispositions to hate some group or something a little bit better. And the problem there seems to be that it's a huge selection bias in who they're talking to. There's no, they're only speaking with people who are like-minded, and they're not trying to, there's no growth mindset. They're not trying to, move beyond that initial decision they've already made about what they think on an issue.
So just some thoughts. It seems like I'm hearing a lot of. You talked about feedback, the need for feedback loops, and going through. I just want to share the thoughts. I haven't organized them. It made me think of George Lakoff and how he talked about these different value systems, the strict parent model versus the nurturing parent, and that it produces, on the one hand, a value system of people who respond more to punishment and reward and quick feedback, versus the nurturing parent that's more a model of a value system that's more people who are interested in interconnectedness and the oneness of humanity. And so it's just, in my mind, I'm thinking as we develop technologies, I think it's vital to bear in mind the audience of the technologies, and are they motivated by interconnectedness or not? And if they're not, in my mind, evolution or bringing about a shift in global consciousness involves moving people towards a more empathetic viewpoint of the world. And I studied conflict resolution, and my professor talked about this era being the post-literate society because of, to a certain extent, because of the technologies that we've implemented. Things like Twitter, or technologies that enable or kind of encourage a non-empathetic viewpoint of the world. So I was wondering, and I don't have the answers, I need to get more granular, but I feel it's key to use technologies to replace whatever we used to get by reading literature, and it gave us a sense of empathy and valuing interconnectedness. Can we try and think of ways that technology can bring this about?
Let me just take the feedback question for one moment. Let me imagine two different kinds of families. One family is very focused on expenses and so on, and so the feedback that they respond to is immediate information about which devices at home are consuming power and how do I cut back on the electrical bill. A different kind of mindset might be, how am I doing compared to everybody else? Am I more consumptive or less consumptive? And and if I'm more consumptive, what can I do? What can I learn about to change the way in which I use energy? So I can imagine trying to adapt the technologies to try to feed both of those kinds of things. I really like the idea of devices that know what kind of energy they're consuming and how much of it and when. And that information somehow becoming available not just to me, but to the power company and everything else, to get a much better sense of what's happening in the region. That doesn't go to the depth of what you were getting at. It's a tiny little example of an engineer trying to inject a small piece of technology into smart equipment that helps me feed back to people and change their behavior patterns.
So quickly, I was just going to say, it seems like we're trying to address a systemic, culturally embedded problems with an approach that's really disaggregated and highly competitive. So in order for us to evolve together as a species, I feel like we need some sort of platform, a space, right, like a global network that we can use to chart progress towards common goals and identify shared dreams, visions, issues that we want to collaborate on solving together, right? the same type of network that could be used to aggregate the impact of individual actions and give people feedback. So my question is, why have we yet to build some sort of network on the planet that can help us with these issues? Because although I think conversation is tremendously important, I think that there's a lot that we agree on that we have to act on immediately, right? I think 99% of the people want to save the environment and this planet, and that appeal works. But there's a disconnect between that feeling and the actions people take on a day-to-day basis, the culture. And I think that, as we've seen with other social networks like Facebook, these networks are changing our culture. They're changing attitudes and behavior on a daily basis. So why have we yet to create that network? And what is Google's hand going to be in creating something like this, and how quickly can it be done?
Last comment, we'll go for feedback.
Hi. Something Barack Obama said during his campaign was, "I may disagree with you, but I will never question your motives." And that comment to me I found very encouraging about the direction that politics is going in this country. It seems to me it's crucial to have that kind of approach to conversation in order for people to engage with people they disagree with and have productive conversations and learn about other points of view. And so my issue is how we can foster a culture of respect in the conversations that people have going forward.
I want to answer the last one, and then we do need to wrap up. One of the most valuable things that the online community does is it makes us blind to the gender, the age, the shape, even the national origin of the person that you're communicating with. So what arises with the ideas, the power of the ideas behind it. Now that's an ideal. That doesn't always work like that. But it certainly helped flatten organizational pyramids, and it certainly helped reshape the conversation. The earlier question about, do we need to talk to the powerful? How do we talk to the powerful? There is an asymmetry in power, wealth, fame, and the antidote to that is numbers. The antidote to the people who have power and are unwilling to listen or talk is numbers, which is the kind of organizing we're talking about here. So in both of those, I just wanted to reference the way online communities have at their heart some inherent advantages.
Well, yeah, I want to use one word that Barack Obama used a lot, hope. It's very hard to have a conversation about the future of the world, the environment, and everything else if there isn't much hope. If you're a kid growing up in the Palestinian territories, there isn't a whole lot of hope. And unless we find a way to provide that in the form of possibility of jobs, some potential for a reasonable standard of living, then you won't be able to converse, because you won't be able to talk about the things we've been talking about, because those folks are more worried about, what am I going to eat tomorrow? What am I going to die of tomorrow? Is somebody going to blast, my residence apart? Am I going to be hit with a stray bullet? Am I going to, contract some terrible illness? We have to figure out how to engineer hope before we can have a useful conversation.
I love your question about respect. I've traveled around the world, as many people have, and I find it's an attitude that I cultivate internally. The word comes from again, and the word for spectacles, to be able to see. And we're told by psychologists that the way our brains work, we stereotype, we build models, and we build off those models. And really, respect means being able to shatter those models in any given situation and to be completely taken over and changed by what you're encountering. And to me, that is what respect is really all about. And so that's a very personal attribute that each of us has to generate. And we should have a lot more conversations about what respect is and what differences are and the richness that differences provide for us just as in ecosystems. So, Kern, do you want to?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you both for being here. It's just an incredible privilege. I hope this conversation continues in ways both predictable and unpredictable, and it's just great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, really appreciate it.